When we think about what stands in the way of our success as investors, there's only really one thing: ourselves. We know that markets move a lot more and a lot more often than most people think. But when we look back at what's been the best thing to do historically, it's been to do nothing differently than what you should already be doing. As long as we're investing in a properly diversified way that's aligned with our goals and risk tolerance, markets will recover from negative events and go on to reach new all-time highs. When we understand this, then it becomes clear that there's nothing that the markets can do that will cause our demise as investors. Remember, we're investing in governments that manage our countries, real estate that make up the communities around us, and companies that we use each and every day. A world where the stock market plunges to zero is a world where none of these things exist. And if that does happen, it would be a world where money has no value. So regardless of whether you were investing or not, we would all be in the exact same place. The only thing that can cause our plans to go off rails is ourselves and our own behavior. Most mistakes come from not understanding what has been normal. This can cause us to make decisions that go against the best thing to do. But by thinking about things in a more relatable way, we can take the logic from other areas of our lives and apply it to our investments. I don't remember the exact saying or who said it, but it's something along the lines of, if you're worried about something, it shows that you shouldn't really worry about it because the biggest surprises are things that no one saw coming. The law of averages makes sense. When things overperform in the short term, it makes sense to expect them to return to their long-term average. This usually means a period of underperformance to return to that mark. This is a concept we accept in our own lives, whether it's a lucky string of events or in sports, when a player or team is on a hot streak or a cold slump. We can accept that the pattern will eventually break and return to normal. Like most things in life, it can be easier to blame external factors than it can be to take responsibility ourselves. But we know that market movements, negative news headlines, or surprising events don't matter in the long term. Sure, they'll make a bunch of noise and commotion in the present, but it's always been that way. And given enough time, they'll be replaced with a new story. Instead of making knee-jerk reactions to things that we know won't matter and putting ourselves in a worse position with a bad decision, history shows us that we don't need to do anything differently. Now, this isn't necessarily easy, and we can see that from the statistics about investors underperforming the market and even the funds that they invest in. But again, if all of this was easy, we'd all be excellent investors and this course wouldn't need to exist. In the moment, the right thing to do is often the hardest thing to do. Making a change might feel right, and it might be easy to do, but it'll likely be a mistake moving forward, either taking us out of the optimal position for the recovery or into a new investment that's more likely to underperform than overperform. Investing is one of those things where we often meet our fate by trying to avoid it. We think we're making good decisions, but we're actually moving further away from what we really want. We might tell ourselves that this time is different, but those have been famous last words for so many investors in the past. And at this point, we're talking about hundreds of years of data and hundreds of millions, if not billions, of investors. We may think that this time is different, but my guess is so did all of them. And history shows us that it absolutely wasn't. Earlier in this course, I said that investing can be as simple or as complicated as we want it to be, and that by automating as much of the process as possible and creating as little ongoing time and effort required from us, we can increase our chance of success. People who have access to a pension typically always retire with a pension. That's because it's automatic. They don't really have a choice. If we can create a similar system, we can create the result we're hoping for. If we're thinking about how we can avoid our biggest threat to our success, which is our own behavior, I think the answer is simple. It's to learn as much as possible, or as much to make you comfortable, and we have to have a plan in place. You by no means need to be an expert, but you want to have your expectations aligned with how the world actually works. Only then can we create behavior that reinforces the right things to do, which should be communicated to us through our plan, which reflects what matters most. We also want to create an environment that encourages and supports our success. If you're a do-it-yourself kind of person and you believe in your ability to build and stick to your plan, then that's perfect. But if you're someone who appreciates support and advice when making big decisions, then working with a team of professionals is much more likely to give you the long-term results that you're looking for. We want to identify the things that actually matter and then figure out what we can control. And instead of focusing our attention all over the place, we want to focus our attention here, on the overlap, on the things that actually matter that we can actually control. Focusing on anything else will just end up being a waste of time. It just depends on what's going to work best for you, what you're comfortable with, and what's going to let you have the most time doing what matters most. You're likely going to be an investor for decades and decades to come. So it has to be a process that we understand to some degree, that we're comfortable with, and that works for us instead of against us. The best way we can ensure our own success is to understand what challenges are, find solutions to those challenges, and act in a way that reinforces the positive behavior that we need to be successful over the long term.